Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. We just heard two news stories that are going to talk about a couple of the things we're going to talk about in the show today. One is Mass MoCA, and two is psychedelics. That's why we're bumping our beloved word nerd to tomorrow's show to make room for Jill Kaufmann from the NEPM News Department, who has the latest on the end of the strike at Mass MoCA in North Adams, as well as taking a look at the light at the end of the tunnel on receivership for Holyoke Public Schools.
We'll also talk with Ayize Jama-Everett, author of a series of Afro-futuristic books. I love the genre, I cannot say it somehow, called the Liminal series, and who has directed a documentary about psychedelics in the Black community. He's coming to Book Moon Books in Easthampton this Friday.
But we begin with the Springfield Symphony Orchestra, who's announced that internationally acclaimed conductor May-Ann Chen is joining the SSO in the newly created position of Artistic Advisor, effective for the 2024-25 season. Joining us is the maestra herself, Maestra May-Ann Chen, and Springfield Symphony Orchestra President and CEO Paul Lambert. Thank you both for joining us.
It's nice to be here. Thanks so much for having us.
Oh, of course.
Thank you for having us.
Now, May-Ann, Paul is here with us in Springfield in the studio. Where are we talking to you?
I am here in San Francisco, making debut with San Francisco Conservatory of Music.
Oh, very cool.
That's excellent. And now we heard that you were a guest conductor last year in the 2023-24 opening night performance. How did the Springfield Symphony Orchestra, with somebody who is so well decorated in the world of conducting and has gone all over the Americas and Europe and Taiwan and the UK and Scandinavia, how did Springfield, Massachusetts come across your transom?
Well, you know, I came to the States in Boston, in the state of Massachusetts, when I was a teenager. And so Massachusetts holds a very special place in my heart. That's where I was musically trained. And so coming back to Springfield, I say coming back because I feel like I was returning home in some ways. And the fact that my first conducting teacher lives nearby, came to my rehearsal, I fell in love with the Springfield Symphony and working with one of the best president and CEO I've ever encountered in the country. Paul Lambert is one of my favorite persons, period. And it's just a dream come true to perhaps work with him longer.
As you can see, it's a joy. How much joy we feel about having May-Ann join us. Her kind words just now kind of symbolizing what we all felt while she was here with us.
You're not even able to slip her a 20 for saying that because she's on a remote.
No, you just get to sit here with us and blush.
Yes.
Well,
it was very, very kind, though. On the other end of things, this is a newly created position for the symphony. Tell us a little bit about the decision to create a position like this.
And did it directly come from May-Ann working with the symphony at her appearance?
Partially, certainly. We've been very open about the fact that the SSO has been coming through a challenging last several years, coming back from what I refer to as the zombie period, where everything had stopped, and rebuilding the organization on the fly. And we chose to do that as we started to do these beautiful concerts in Symphony Hall by having a series of guest conductors and putting seasons together with our program committee, which was made up of board members, myself, a few staff, and a series of our musicians putting things together. We always knew that we were taking step by step, trying as we reemerged, what's the right path for the SSO? It's a very challenging time for this entire industry. We have if you look at it that way, as an advantage of doing this carefully as we come back from the pandemic, from during this challenging. Where should we go? How do we rebuild this thing properly for the new era? Some of the decisions we've been making, it seemed time now as we came to this juncture. We've had a lot of wonderful things happen over the last 2 years. It was time now to start to build some continuity into our artistic presentations and choices. Having met May-Ann and the two of us having a lot of conversations about content and about future program opportunities and diversity of musical choices and audiences, it seemed like a wonderful time to really start to create this new opportunity to bring someone with her tremendous background and all the gifts she brings to the table to work with us on an ongoing basis. So we're taking that first step into rebuilding the next step along the way as we build the SSO back.
Cool.
Speaking with SSO President, Springfield Symphony Orchestra President, and CEO Paul Lambert, as well as the newly created holding that position, the artistic advisor, Mei-Ann Chen, the maestro, who is a conductor and a performer and has gone all over the world. Mei-Ann, let's get to know you a little bit better. You mentioned that Boston was your first encounter here. Where were you coming from to get to Boston?
Well, sure. I was a teenager when a youth orchestra from New England Conservatory toured my native country, Taiwan, and gave me the chance to come and fulfill my musical dream. I tricked my parents into giving me a ticket. They wanted me to be a concert violinist. And I secretly thought, okay, I'm coming to America. Finally, I can fulfill my own dream of becoming a conductor, because seeing the conductor on the podium using only body language to make the largest sound in the room, that was what caught my attention as a shy violinist at age 10, playing in an orchestra for the first time. And so my goal, working with Springfield Symphony Orchestra, is to bring all my experiences of making symphonic concerts fun. I grew up with a sister who was into anything but classical music, and we're as tight as twins. And so it taught me a whole lot about, I want to make this art form fun for the person I care the most growing up. And so, I was able to apply that to, I grew up as a nerd, I just love classical music, but now I get to make classical music fun for most people who are probably like my sister, thinking that the symphony orchestra is not for me. But I can assure you, symphony orchestra is for everyone. And what a great vehicle for Springfield Symphony to take the position of embracing, inclusion, diversity, equity through innovative programmings. And that's where Paul and our conversations have circled around. And I'm just really tickled to have such a wonderful partner in crime, and to have the wonderful musicians and the board chair who is so caring about what we put on stage. I was just hoping to cross paths with them, not knowing that they were actually dream of a position to include me. So I'm grateful.
And one of the things that's always moved me is having spent a lot of years in basketball and being amazed at how many people came from very difficult background sometimes to achieve things through the game. I always love stories of people overcoming obstacles to fulfill their dream, to get to a wonderful place. And Mei-Ann's story about, she didn't tell you about auditioning for this youth orchestra in a closed bar in the off hours to win this trip to the United States. I mean, the whole thing, and really secretly wanting to conduct, when of course in those days most people didn't think women conducted a lot. I mean, there's so many things that remarkable parts about her personal story that I admire and I love. And I think it's really wonderful for us to be able to bring some of that to our friends in our community here in Springfield.
Well, it's worth noting for people that Paul Lambert was with the Basketball Hall of Fame for a long time. So if the disconnect there between basketball and the symphony is there, that was what you were doing just prior to this.
I mean, there's not. We've all seen Space Jam. So
not a lot of classical in Space Jam, but
it involves Looney Tunes who are very connected to classical music.
That's true. We'll talk about that, I'm sure.
Being at that first program that Mei-Ann Chen was a part of, that she was conducting, what were some of the things that stood out to you that made you want to continue working with her?
Oh, so many things. One, her passion for the music. She talked about the physical approach that her conducting is full and vibrant approach to the music, her connection with the orchestra right away, and frankly, even her comments, not just with us, but the other members of the community who she spoke with. You could feel the warmth, you could feel the intelligence, and you could also feel the passion that she brings to the table that we all feel every day. I mean, our small but mighty team at the SSO who works very hard together. We share that, and to find that kind of kindred spirit immediately was very special.
I think it's fascinating talking about the fact that you were playing the violin, that you must have been very, very good at it, enough to win a trip to the U.S. and to study with some of the finest musicians in the world, but that it was the physicality behind conducting that was really appealing to you. As somebody who's not a very good musician, I could imagine I would rather have the magic power of being able to play the violin and wow everybody than just the physicality of being in front of an orchestra. And yet, conductors have to read all of the music that is being performed at the same time.
That's right.
Tell me a little bit about what made that click for you. And do you still play the violin, I guess?
Well, I have such a schedule that I no longer have the calluses to play on the violin efficiently. But, to answer your question, I mean, imagine this. You have like a wand in your hand. When you move, there's sounds that's being creative. And what drew me to conducting was I saw this person, conducting is about being the music. And this person get to embody what music is about. I grew up literally watching the Boston Symphony under Maestro Seiji Ozawa, who just passed away. And, of course, I study Leonard Bernstein over, online and VHS. Well, now you know how old I am. And you get to think that conducting is so easy, but it's actually not easy when your instruments are live human beings. And so what drew me to this art form, I thought, okay, I use body language to communicate. I will never have to talk again, and look at what I'm doing. but I realized, being the conductor is more than just waving your arms. It's becoming that music. It's becoming that spokesperson for the art form to make people realize how important this art form can be. I also came from a culture where baseball was totally, sort of a fanatic, sports in Taiwan. And, there's actually a lot of analogies between sports and art, that communal experience when you hit that home run, it's kind of, the end of our concert when we hit our home run is when we have somehow conveyed the messages conceived by the composer and through me as a channel to enable these creative individuals to create something meaningful, beautiful collectively. And that energy felt by the audience, who in terms, Paul has witnessed me encouraging the audience to cheer for the orchestra like a sports event. Why not? They're Olympians, be able to do things. To your point, to be able to play an instrument at that level, all of them are Olympians in some ways. They have such commitment to get themselves trained, to have such acquired skills. And my job, it kind of looks easy, but kind of hard, is I need to be the MBA person, the manager on stage, to allow all the talent to flow through with their creativity and with such a collective unified spirit that the audience felt, transported just from that, whether 90 minutes or 2-hour time that we bring them into the hall. So I have a fun job, and I wouldn't trade anything for it. So I still am proud to trick my parents into giving me a ticket to fulfill my dream.
Well, I want to hear a little bit more about that and that
sure.
sort of after-hours audition that you did in a bar.
That's right.
And we'll hear more about your vision as the artistic advisor of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra when we continue our conversation with Maestra Mayan Chen, as well as the CEO and president of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra, Paul Lambert, coming right up.
And later, NEPM's Jill Kaufmann on the end of the strike at Mass MoCA in North Adams and the end of receivership for Holyoke Public Schools. Plus, author Ayize Jama-Everett on his Afrofuturistic book series and his documentary about psychedelics and the Black community. He's coming to Book Moon in Easthampton later this week. It's going to be interesting, y'all.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM. Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. We are joined by Maestra Mayan Chen, the new artistic advisor for the Springfield Symphony Orchestra, as well as Springfield Symphony president and CEO Paul Lambert. Mayan Chen has just been announced as the new artistic advisor to the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. And Paul set up a really interesting story, man, about you auditioning in a closed after-hour bar that won you your ticket from Taiwan to the United States. Can you tell us a little bit about that story?
And did they know at the time that you had no intention of staying just a violinist?
You're asking me?
Yes.
I assume?
Yes.
Yes. So, the YPO from New England Conservatory, their youth orchestra was on tour to Taiwan. And, I went to the concert and had no intention of meeting the conductor except my piano accompanist said, let me take you backstage to meet this conductor who happened to be Mr. Ben Zander, who's kind of a well-known tech talk personality talking about the power of music. And so I have very little English with me. And my older accompanist basically asked Mr. Zander, could you hear this little girl play the violin while you guys are in town? And he said, of course, come to our hotel next morning. So I showed up. No, it was the last minute. My accompanist couldn't make it. So it was just me and Mr. Zander. And I played for him on the only place quiet enough of the whole hotel was this closed bar in the basement. And the orchestra was already checked out, ready to head to the next town on their tour. And I played my heart out for him on Wieniawski Violin Concerto, and not knowing what it's going to lead to. And he was so impressed. He actually told my parents he's seen a lot of Asian students who grew up with, tiger moms. Practice. Discipline is very important. But I wasn't practicing for my parents anymore since I was not actually in music school at that point. That was kind of the silver lining. My parents had my sister and me both start on an instrument so they could have free concerts at home. So yes, I did start entertaining my parents. But when they gave up the music dream of pulling me from Taipei back to my hometown Kaohsiung, which has the largest arts complex in the world right now, maybe one day the SSL will make it there to my hometown.
We're counting
that could
on
be a dream come true. And so actually, when the silver lining is sometimes when things don't go your way, you look for the opportunity. And the opportunity for me is that music became mine. It was my place to nourish my inner soul. And so when I played for Mr. Zander in that closed, smelly bar in my hometown, he saw someone who was leading the orchestra through violin. He told my parents he could get scholarship for me if they wanted me to pursue, violin studies at NEC. So that's what I meant. I trick everybody. Nobody knew my secret love. I was going to come to America and just, basically fulfill my dream and make a big difference through the power of music.
That is Maestra Mayan Chen, who is the new artistic advisor for the Springfield Symphony Orchestra.
So, Paul Lambert of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra, what does this position entail, and what do you seek to have it do for the Springfield Symphony Orchestra?
Well, first, we're really happy. Our next season coming to be announced very soon. Mayan will be with us to conduct 2 concerts with us next year, which is really important, we think, to get back to here and to know us more and to be in the community more with us, which we're very excited about. But also she'll work with me and with our program committee and with our team to start to look at other opportunities, how we start to build for the future, start to put the next season together already, to start to look at what are we doing. We've made a lot of intentional choices based on instincts, based on where we think we should go. To have her expertise and creativity brought to the table with us is really going to be a vital part of putting together future concerts, future offerings, and at the same time say, there are other things we should be doing as an organization, that we think are really important to build that vibrant future that we all want. And a lot of the choices we've made, as you can tell, are quite intentional. Mm-hmm. We deliberately, as we came back and we started to choose our guest conductors, we very deliberately included women conductors, which was important. We think it's important that folks see different kinds of people at the podium. We've had conductors of color. We've had younger conductors. We've had different kinds of folks all the time who've brought different energy to the podium. And we think that's really important for the very wonderfully diverse community that we happen to be lucky enough to live in.
Right. And it's so great that there is a symphony here in this city, in Springfield. Mayan Chen, who's in San Francisco right now, another wonderfully diverse city. Right. Are there? Tell us a little bit about what the vision is that you might have bringing this new position forward as artistic advisor for the Springfield Symphony.
Every community is different, but, I think down to the core is when I am approaching programming is to create something that's for everyone. And so what's really fun that I have done in the past is, create a narrative for every concert we do. There's always a story that we can create with the pieces we choose, the guest artists we invite, the guest conductors we invite. But also, it's people come into the concert thinking, okay, you're going to have like a formula, maybe a short piece, maybe a concerto featuring a soloist, maybe a big symphonic piece. But perhaps I can bring a little bit surprises to bruise something up. What if we throw audience a surprise? And if it's going to be a surprise, I cannot be telling people what the surprise is on NPR.
Oh, all
so you
right.
have to come to the hall and find out what the surprises might be. And so I like to make a symphony orchestra a place of community. People just come not only for great music, and we will provide that through wonderful masterworks of, symphonic repertoire, people recognizable composers, but maybe there are other elements I like to bring that for people to experience. Maybe there will be audience engagement. Maybe there will be, pieces that's not on the program per se. And so I like to make symphony orchestra concerts fun. If my sister could have fun, I have succeeded in making symphony orchestra a fun venture for most people. And what a great way, we all agree music is a universal language. And what a great way for a symphony orchestra to take that on and really transport people and bring the communities together in ways that's beyond words and just names on the page. So come and experience the SSO as we are turning a new chapter of exciting, new pages of history under the wonderful leadership of Paul Lambert and also the board president, Paul Freeman. That's the two wonderful Pauls in my life.
Second Paul.
Two Pauls. Yeah.
Speaking of coming to see the Springfield Symphony Orchestra, you've got a program happening next Saturday.
A week from Saturday, exactly. A beautiful concert.
Talk to us about An American Celebration a little bit.
If you don't enjoy this concert, I don't want to sound there's something wrong with you, but it's George. It's George Gershwin. It's Aaron Copland. I mean, it's such beautiful music.
Copland is one of my absolute favorites.
Exactly.
I'm just saying.
No, it's just such beautiful music, and it's something. Peter Boyer has also written a new piece on the 100th anniversary of Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, which we'll do Rhapsody in Blue, and we'll do this new piece celebrating that. So we think it's very exciting. He'll be there conducting. So we have the composer there. It's Jeffrey Beagle coming in to play the piano and to play Rhapsody in Blue with us. So he's been with the SSO many times in the past. So it's going to be a beautiful concert. We're doing a lot of work with some veterans groups as well, some outreach into the community to invite folks to really be part of this, doing some trying to help them raise some badly needed supplies for some vets who are challenged right now. So we're doing what we can. We're trying with every concert to do something outreach into the community where we can. It's passion for not just for me, but for all of us at the SSO. And then we'll follow up in April. We have our return to our education youth concert. We have hundreds right now of fourth graders coming to a concert and some high school kids.
Oh, that sounds like chaos. Like beautiful chaos.
I love fourth graders. They're magic people. So we're excited about that. And we'll be working with Kaylin Marcel Manson, a wonderful local
we love him.
conductor, to work with us on that. So we're really excited about that as well.
He's been on many times, and he's welcome every time.
Every time.
Good things to come.
American Celebration, the Gershwin, the Copland concert, the Gershwin, and more is a week from Saturday, April 6th at the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. One more question for you, Mayan Chen, the maestra, who is the new artistic advisor for the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. You mentioned how inspired you were seeing conductors conduct. Did you watch the movie Maestro, and how did he do as a Leonard Bernstein double there? Did you feel moved by Bradley Cooper's portrayal of the Maestro?
I have had such an intense schedule. I haven't got to that movie. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I will
Keith
report back to
Lockhart from
you.
the Boston Pops
No,
didn't see it either,
He's
so
been
don't feel
asking
bad.
this of every conductor, so it's okay. None of them have seen it. We're not
I'm
holding
busy
it against
working as a maestro, so give me some time, and that's great to have a movie about conductors, but even greater if people come to support the SSO. So thank you so much for mentioning it.
And your next opportunity is next Saturday, April 6th. We should mention the Springfield Symphony Orchestra is an underwriter, but that's not why we have them on. They just do really cool, fun things.
And they're right down the hall, the
yeah.
street. The hall is like the street.
Yeah, it's like school, all of Springfield. And we're really great to meet the new artistic advisor, Mayan Chen, and always to have Paul Lambert, the president and CEO, on with us here. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Can't
Thanks
wait
so much.
to see
Enjoy
what
to be
you do
with you
next
both.
season.
Thank
It's gonna
you.
be
You're the
awesome.
best. I love Springfield. People are so nice, like you guys.
Love it.
The best.
Thank you.
Well, later in the show, an author that you can see at Book Moon in Easthampton this Friday, and hot off the heels of a showing of his documentary about psychedelics in the Black community in Boston, Ayize Jama-Everett will join us.
Up next, though, NEPM's Jill Kaufmann with the latest on two stories we've been following on the show: the strike at Mass MoCA in North Adams and the receivership in Holyoke Public Schools.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Dateline, North Adams. A story published last night on the NEPM website by reporter Jill Kaufmann. Quote, Mass MoCA, the Contemporary Art Museum in North Adams, Massachusetts, will be staffed as usual Wednesday, today, after unionized workers voted late Tuesday to ratify an agreement on wages, ending a 3-week strike that began March 6th. Thank you for covering this story for us here at NEPM, Jill Kaufmann, and joining us to talk about it today. Tell us, we heard last week that there was an offer from management that was declined, but tell us what pushed this deal over the edge.
Switching mics? No, mic on. Okay, many days of a strike. What pushed over the edge? I don't know that we know what pushed it over the edge, but negotiations and some meeting in the middle. While the workers, the union said $18.25 an hour, this was the sticking point. There's other wage increases that happened. This minimum hourly wage for about 60% of the employees in this union, about 120 altogether, 125. The union was saying $18.25 an hour, up from $16.25 an hour, and the museum was saying $17.25 an hour. So we've landed at $18 an hour, and that's for year one. This is a 2-year contract now, and this was not the intention of either the museum or the union to go in there working on a 2-year contract, but both sides came in with offers that went 2 years. So that $18 will go up a little over 3% in year two, which starts January 2025. There were, just without throwing lots of numbers out there, general wage increases for full-time staff as well. There were equity increases for employees who were acting in some kind of senior role, and that was called for. There was also more holiday pay paid for that hadn't been paid for. But this is something that you folks will pay attention to, because all those shows that we go to and that you talk about on the Fabulous 413, the workday of employees at Mass MoCA, people will now be paid for more than 10 hours a day they work for. And the number 10 is kind of an interesting number. If you work 10 or more hours, you'll get paid overtime. And I asked Chelsea Farrell of the union, well, does that mean that in terms of safety, that somebody could work 15 hours up on a stage, up on a rig, hanging a light? She goes, well, that was not part of this conversation, but that is not on the radar. That is on the radar for both the museum and for the union.
So what was happening before, if you happen to be an employee at Mass MoCA and there's a huge festival going on that's going to go from, early-ish in the morning until late at night?
I can't help but notice that this contract comes around every 2 years, like Solid Sound.
Solid Sound Festival coming up in June. What were they getting paid, not getting paid overtime if they continued to work on those days before?
I will say I believe they were not getting paid overtime, whatever the rate was. But some of these folks are salaried, and they are way higher than the minimum wage. I'm not going to say that it is the right or the wrong wage at all. But now those people will also get paid for that overtime, even with their salary, not hourly income.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So what is this going to mean for ticket prices? How is the museum going to pay for this?
Well, we didn't hear from the museum. We don't know. So I have been in touch with the museum a few times in the last 24 hours. I did hear back last night from Jen Farrell, the spokesperson, who said, yes, employees are coming back to work, very excited, as are people who are back at their jobs. But the museum did not return my inquiry for either interviews or to respond to the question of how does the museum afford this? Does the museum had proposed it might close a day a week that they usually hadn't been closed to afford a wage increase. That is not necessarily the case now, but I haven't gotten a confirmation. I asked Chelsea Farrell of the union, what does it mean? Could the museum lay people off saying, well, we've raised wages, but we can't afford everybody. Mm-hmm. And she said,
Take the UPS approach.
If that you want to tell that story, because I don't have it.
Oh, sorry.
I have how much time do you have?
I have a little bit of insider baseball on that one.
So she could not. She said, "Look, their unions are in place for a reason. They are there to protect workers and negotiate, and that is not just going to come out of nowhere, as far as they know, at this point."
We're speaking with NEPM's Jill Kaufmann about the Mass MoCA strike ending last night. Everybody's back at work today.
Everybody was scheduled to work today. I did reach out to to one person who's part of the art fabrication team, and he said, no, he's not coming until tomorrow. So I said, I didn't want to talk to you yet. I wanted to know what it was like to be inside. Chelsea Farrell, again from the union, said she heard from folks. The thing that she had pointed out, and I may have said this to you a few weeks ago, is that on the picket line, no one wanted to be there, but they were starting to meet people in other departments, and there was a really great community sense, and so they go back into work today, knowing more people who they work with. I asked about what does it mean to work with the managers and the upper management. There was so much acrimony as there are in strikes, and she said, well, we hope that's all behind us.
Yes. Well, we'll see what happens after day one today, because now they're working back in the building with each other. It was the longest museum strike?
It was not the longest museum strike in history. I did ask for a platitude because, in public media, we really like the sensational headlines.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Yes. Okay, so what Chelsea said is that a few years ago, the Philadelphia Museum of Art went on strike. She thinks it was a 19-day strike, so that Mass MoCA was on strike longer. But if you go way back toward 2000, the Museum of Modern Art in New York was on strike for 6 months. It is a relatively recent occurrence that there are unions in museums and movie theaters and other arts organizations. So just factor that in.
Yeah, and even Mass MoCA's museum is relatively young.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the Amherst Cinema just recently unionized as an arts organization, nonprofit. So this is an up-and-coming...
It is a wave of unionization happening across the board so that people can, have rights and lives.
We should mention that Mass MoCA is an underwriter of NEPM as well, but that doesn't affect our coverage of NEPM. Of Mass MoCA. I get my acronyms all mixed up.
This is true. Okay, so now back across the mountains with us to Holyoke. Monday night, big things happening with the receivership down by the river, the monthly school committee meeting. Acting Massachusetts Commissioner of Education Russell Johnston was in the room, and you were there as well.
This is all true. This was an official monthly school committee meeting with an hour before of talk with Russell Johnston, who is 6 days into the job. He is an acting commissioner, but has been with the Department of Education a long time. And the conversation, that first hour and the second hour, was about this transition out of state receivership, which was not on the table. A month ago, it was not on the table when Commissioner Jeff Riley was still in place. He has stepped down. We'll talk about more on that in a minute. What it means to transition out of state receivership is to be seen, but there is a plan of meeting once a month between now and August that to create a transition plan. How do school committees work together? How do they govern? How do they work on contracts or make policy decisions? Look over the budget. This school committee has worked together before. They have been doing trainings. Johnston complimented them on the progress they had made and the progress students have made. But, I'm jumping ahead with all these things, but I just want to say that the district is not coming out of receivership because it met the original intent of receivership. They are in receivership since 2015 because they have been deemed chronically underperforming, the students chronically underperforming by a measure of the standardized test known as the MCAS. That they are not meeting the standard that the state wants, nor is Lawrence or Southbridge.
And the only other two cities in receivership currently.
The districts are in receivership. There are a few individual schools. Yeah. But there is, but educators talk about, and at the state level even, and Mayor Joshua Garcia, receivership is not working. So give back the local control. Let schools that know their kids and know how things work with guidance from the state shore do their job. Sitting in the room Monday, I did get the sense from the committee or members of the committee that they were like, this is unbelievable. And I want you to hear the vice chair of the school committee in Holyoke, Erin Brunel, just wanting a little more assurance from Commissioner Johnston.
Okay, so we will let you guys get back to Boston, but if I may just put you on the record, are you saying that you are officially recognizing that we're entering the transition process to exit receivership?
We are officially entering the transition process to return to local control.
Woo!
Did you hear what she said?
Yes. Was this at all expected? Because the last time we talked about this on the show, we had Mayor Garcia on, and they had applied to the state to say, hey, I think we're ready. And the state and Jeff Riley at the time had said, no, I don't think you're ready.
The irony of that, of course, being that Jeff Riley was in charge of Lawrence's receivership before he got his position, overseeing the educational committee there. And his city is still in receivership, despite putting forth plans, putting forth things in front of him who was in charge of those plans before.
So Jeff Riley So when you met with Mayor Garcia, it must have been December or before December. The petition from the school committee, which includes the state-appointed receiver, was we are ready to operate. We are ready to transition back to local control and make all those decisions. And Jeff Riley, the commissioner, deferred his decision. He said more time needed. He said that about a month before he announced he was stepping down. He said he was stepping down for personal reasons. Mayor Garcia said, we have a governor who day one said, I want plans about local control for these districts. And Mayor Garcia said that she and Jeff Riley were not on the same page. A new administration, new people, and that is not unusual at all. And we wish Jeff Riley good luck with his family because there were family matters. But Russell Johnston is completely different tone, and for the school committee, from what I heard from Mayor Garcia, completely different attitude and completely rolling his sleeves up, saying, "I will work with you. We will work with you." And the committee reflects that. I mean, I wouldn't be saying this if it wasn't coming from them, but it was really quite a thing to hear. Did
you expect an announcement like this yesterday, or did this kind of come out of nowhere?
I think this was Monday night, and I think I didn't know about the pre-meeting, which I know every single one is on the calendar now. An hour before every school committee meeting between now and August, Russell Johnston said he's coming out here to work on the matters of what it means to govern a district. Mm-hmm. Did I know? We knew that things were shifting, and I actually cannot pinpoint when I knew, but. We knew that the fact that he was coming out meant a very, very big thing was happening. And he is game to work under, the Board of Education. He's not making individual decisions, but he is a very different person.
Cool.
Are there next steps before we let you go?
No. Next steps are these monthly meetings. So they're gonna meet again in April, and they will continue to train. What does it mean to work with a group of people to make decisions? You know this. You're a talk show. What does it mean to say to Tony Dunn, no? I know. We'll do it our way.
Tony Dunn is our director.
Right. No. So it means that they will continue to train with the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, which exists, and the executive director of that association was in the room as well. They will continue to train to learn to navigate and negotiate together. They will learn about state stature, the law about what you can and can't do as a school committee. There was a picket, not a strike, but I believe a picket line outside of paraeducators, assistant teachers, so to speak, who want to get their contract renegotiated. Mm-hmm. And the district can't do anything about that right now, but the state can. But coming soon, not September 1st, but coming soon, a district that can make those decisions about contracts and educator wages without the state's interference.
NEPM reporter Jill Kaufmann on the light at the end of the tunnel for Holyoke receivership, as well as the actual end of the strike at Mass MoCA. Thank you so much for covering these stories.
Thank you so much. I love working with you guys. Thank you.
Up next, Ayize Jama-Everett, author of the Liminal series of novels, will be at Book Moon in Easthampton, talks with us about his books and the documentary he's brought to Boston.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
Words.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, offering solar options, energy security, and solutions for the local community. Learn more at northeast-solar.com.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. Author Ayize Jama-Everett has traveled from Oakland to Boston today for a showing of his documentary, A Table of Our Own, a documentary about black people and psychedelics. He'll be making a special appearance at Book Moon in Easthampton Friday. Book Moon doubles as the home of Small Beer Press and is run by the couple, Gavin Grant and Kelly Link. Kelly, the MacArthur Genius Award winner who we had on the show with her new book, The Book of Love.
Ayize has a series of books called the Liminal series. The fourth and final installment, published by Small Beer Press, Heroes from an Unknown World, is out now. It's been called A Grandiose Battle Against Despair. Heroes from an Unknown World is a story of a found family of black superheroes who have one last chance to save the world.
Ayize Jama-Everett has worked as a bartender, a translator, a drug and alcohol counselor, a stand-up comedian, a script doctor, a ghostwriter, a high school dean, a college professor, and for a brief time, a distiller of spirits.
Jama-Everett's Liminal series began with the liminal people and continued with the liminal war and the entropy of bones, all of which I'm assuming you can probably pick up at Book Moon when you go and see him. He has also written a graphic novel, Box of Bones, with two-time Eisner Award winner John Jennings. His second graphic novel, The Last Count of Monte Cristo, illustrated by Tristan Roach, will be published by Abrams next month. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, I love that you have a Count of Monte Cristo book as somebody who calls himself Monty all the time.
And I have to say, I picked up Box of Bones on a whim from the comic book shop next door to Book Moon, Comics and More, and just adored it. So thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you. Just so you know, Volume 2 is already out.
Yeah! I've been waiting.
As is the Count of Monte Cristo. That book is out now.
Oh,
so
it's already come out. I thought it was coming out in
it's already
April.
come out.
Oh, that's excellent.
Nice.
So that's good to know. And maybe you can even get that one at Book Moon on Friday. You'll be there.
Oh, and actually, it's Thursday. It's going to be tomorrow.
Okay.
I
Well,
think
good
It's
thing.
not your fault.
Good thing.
That's my fault.
No.
I switched it on them. I told them Friday originally that I have to go tomorrow. So.
Okay.
Oh, good. So
okay, well, go to Book Moon tomorrow to see Ayize.
Yes.
I loved how some of the classic tales of black folklore got mixed into Box of Bones, and like the way that there's a little bit of that in the Liminal series. Did you always want to work with like not just black stories, but like historically important and culturally important black stories and moving them into modern context?
Yeah, I mean, this is radio, so to be clear, I am an African-American male.
Yes.
And for me, the way that I've been trained to write is write what you know. And if I know anything, it's black people and black history and black story and black narrative. And but I've also seen, being in the 21st century in the United States, that the richness of black culture and black history often gets downgraded and watered down. And it looks like slavery and then Martin Luther King and we were free and, hip hop and that's it. Right. And so I'm like, there's a lot more interesting things that go on in black culture. And I wanted to highlight those, not just as, oh, these are the shining accomplishments of black people, but also these are some of the really weird things that we've been put through. And these are some of the funky ways that we've adapted to survive.
Yeah. Box of Bones plays with horror and horror tropes in those contexts in a really neat way, and the art is gorgeous. I can't talk that book up enough.
And the Liminal series, I have not had a chance to read yet, unfortunately, but your main character, is a sort of an anti-hero, superhero that can time travel and work with DNA. Introduce us to your anti-hero of the Liminal series.
Well, our main guy is a guy named Taggart, and he's actually got a discrete set of skills in that he can heal and hurt just by thinking about a body. And he works, with bodies. And this is a world where there are these liminal people that are something more than human, but far less than gods. And it's just a question of what do you do when you have an ability that nobody else does, but it doesn't make you that much better than anybody else, right? We kind of have this fantasy that I think a lot of comics are dissecting now, where it's like, oh, well, somebody if you knew that you could fly, would you automatically put on some red underwear and start running around helping people? Like, is that really what you would do? Like, there's questions, and I think if you allow people to still be human and have different abilities, then you get to tell a lot more interesting stories. So Liminal People focuses on someone who doesn't have family and doesn't know what family is, and has sort of been cut off from that notion. And his big arc is, what would a family look like for someone who hasn't always been the best person in the world?
Is it true that you started this series out as sort of like a self-published book, that it was rejected multiple times and then finally was brought to full press and had the opportunity to maybe revise some of the language of Taggart and the other characters, but opted not to?
That is mostly true.
Okay.
I had written this other novel before and was sending it around and getting the best rejection letters ever. Like, just really well crafted. Like, this is a beautiful piece of science fiction. Unfortunately, we only publish fantasy. Or like, this is an amazing fantasy book. Unfortunately, we only do science fiction. I was like, I don't know what to do, right? And then this one person was like, hey, please take this, in the spirit that it's meant, but this is a pretty complex book. Have you ever thought about writing something simpler?
There's a lot of optics on that particular sentence.
Thank you. You understand.
Yes, immediately.
So, and it was like 2007, 2008. So like everybody wasn't fully aware of just how funky that could sound. But I was like, that's fine. I got really angry because that's what I do when I get frustrated. And I was like, you want simple? I'll show you simple. And I took one of the like basic characters, like side characters from that first novel, and just furiously wrote for a month. And that was the Liminal people. And I was like, okay. And I was so frustrated by like trying to get it out and having all sort of stuff go on that I was like, screw it, I'm going to do it myself. And so I did it. I self-published in the worst way possible. I did everything wrong. I had I printed out 3,000 copies. My copy editor didn't check for spelling errors in places. I had a cover that could only be printed on a certain format that I had. The format that I had, no bookstore will ever pick up. I did everything wrong and wasted a bunch of money. And I showed it to my really good friend, Nalo Hopkinson. If you haven't heard of her, some people know who Nalo is.
Just dropping names like Nalo Hopkinson. Jesus.
Queer Caribbean sci-fi fantasy, amazing Afrofuturist author who is also one of the sweetest, nicest people in the world.
Check out Brown Girl in the Ring if you haven't. It's absolutely fantastic.
Nalo Hopkinson has been a champion of my writing since before I was even considered a decent writer. And she was like, hey, this is good. She's like, and you should send it over to Gavin and Kelly. And I was like, nah. I was like, I don't know them, and had a conversation with Gavin, and he's like, needs a little tightening just in terms of typos and stuff, but you're good to go if you want it. And then he's like, but you got to tell me when the next one's coming. And I was like, so did all that. And then, it's been 10 years. And Gavin gave me the opportunity to adjust some of the language in the text. And I don't know how I feel about that overall. I think, I always use Huckleberry Finn, and I'm going to take my privilege and say the word, the fact that Huck's friend is named Nigger Jim, I think is important in that text. I don't think N-word Jim covers that. I don't think Negro Jim covers that, right? I think that it's specific to that place and that time. And I'm not comparing myself to Mark Twain at all, but I think the first Liminal books, I think all Liminal books are of a certain time and of a certain period. And the characters that, Monty said it from the beginning, they're anti-heroes. These are not good people. So they're going to say things, they're going to behave in ways that aren't always 100%. And I feel like sometimes we need to allow for that. We need to allow for that discomfort. We need to allow for that, those bad people doing good things or good people doing bad things in order to continue to have those conversations. And if we sanitize everything for a particular generation or a particular time, I just worry that we're going to lose some of the authenticity of those previous eras. So I decided, Taggart says some homophobic stuff. Taggart does some reprehensible stuff. That's the weird thing for me, not to go off on a tangent.
Oh, well, we don't really have enough time for a tangent, unfortunately. But,
sorry, go for it. My bad.
But we do
I'll
want to
shut
know, now that you're not there on Friday, when can we find you at Book Moon in Easthampton, where Gavin and Kelly took a chance on your books that have now, there's the last of the series is out. When will we see you there tomorrow?
Tomorrow at 2 p.m.
2 p.m. at
Yep.
Book Moon Books in Easthampton. Ayize Jama-Everett. It's fascinating. I can't wait to watch the full documentary, A Table of Our Own, a documentary about Black people and psychedelics. And I know the
wish we'd had more
psychedelics.
time to talk about it because, with the news coming out of Beacon Hill, that's absolutely fascinating too.
Yeah, and the documentary trailer looks really great, and I know works its way a little bit into the Liminal series, that idea of psychedelics as well too. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ayize.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem.
Regent Theater in Arlington, if you can make it out to Table of Our Own tonight at 7:30 at the Regency in Arlington.
All right, if you're going to Boston, you can go check it out.
Word.
I'm Monty Belmonte.
I'm Khalees Smith. We'll see you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.